And welcome to Impact 2023, our continuing conversation where we talk about everything from current events, where we talk about race, religion, everything that you want to talk about. And we talk about it from a safe place, and we also talk about it from a Christian perspective. And so, as always, we encourage people to join in on the conversation. Type your questions and your comments into the comment section. And so, as you hear the topic and as we go through, feel free to participate. This is a conversation, so that means it goes both ways. As I talk, I also want to engage with you in your comments as well as we go on through this process. So head right into our topic as always. Um, I just recently went to a funeral, and one of the things that was said about the person that passed away is that they love to travel, that they love to see the world, and that it colored how they did their life and how they raised their children as well. Encouraging to travel and to go out and meet new people and do new things outside of the country, all over the world. Live in different places, do different things, meet different folk, all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of people love that. A lot of people really love traveling, not just domestically, but internationally. And especially here in the U.S. We have some crazy numbers. Annually, at least 46 million trips are taken every single year, according to the stats and everything like that. So we have ridiculous amounts of travel. Benefits of traveling is, again, you get to meet new people and new cultures. What we have, though, I think, is a situation of where sometimes people feel the need to go and meet new people, see new cultures, so that they're able to appreciate it. They can't appreciate people's cultures and people appreciate other people and what they do from afar. I do think that that's a significant character flaw that a lot of us have, that you don't have respect for other folk unless you actually touch them or have something invested into them. But regardless of that, that is why a lot of people travel. And so you go over to China. You really don't have any understanding or respect for their culture. You go over there, and now all of a sudden you gain some respect for them as human beings. And since that is a lot of people's position, or that's how a lot of people learn to appreciate others, one of the discussion points is, how important is it to travel? Like, is that a significant and important thing for us to do? When we go back in the day, and we think about people, or we go back to biblical times, you always hear about people travel. Nobody just stayed in one spot in one location. Everybody traveled, and that's a tough situation back then. Now, it definitely wasn't as far as what we're talking about. You're not hopping on planes and you're not going hundreds of miles, but you're still talking about people just traveling, having to put their stuff in some kind of vehicle, whether the vehicle is their feet or an animal or a wagon or whatever, and move and travel around so that we can appreciate other folk. And I'll say this, I've traveled, I've had my stamp, my passport stamped and all that, but I'm not a big traveler. Like, if I didn't travel again, I wouldn't do any difference. However, I'm also one of these people who I can appreciate cultures that I don't see. For example, Native Americans. I know that we need to support Native Americans, Indigenous Americans, whatever the name is that you feel is correct. I know that we need to support those individuals, and I understand that here in the United States and across the world, Indigenous people have been treated terribly, and we need to support them and respect them. And assist in whatever ways that we can, and make sure that we're not continuing to be, as society, continuing to be harsh towards them. I don't need to meet anybody to know that. I don't know anybody who is majority Native American. Other than maybe seeing some people from afar, I don't know any. And so but that's me. But for many other people, they have to have that appreciation. They have to gain that appreciation from actually touching, seeing, communicating with people. And so, how important is it that we get out of our place, get out of our comfort zone, get out of our siloed areas, and travel and meet others? Um, is it important? We've been talking about the different types of discussions that have been going on with people talking about Christianity, and one of the solutions, if you've been here, one of the solutions in the past of people who have these different views on Christianity, where there's a little bit of racism mixed in, there's a little bit of sexism and all these other isms, and a little bit of hate mixed in. One of the solutions that was proposed is that people need to get out of their area in their comfort zone and kind of meet others and communicate with others, because all they're hearing is what they're hearing and all they're seeing is what they're seeing, and they need to be opened up and broadened out. Now, I don't know whether or not that solution is the solution, but I know a lot of people prescribe to that. I know of plenty of folk who sit back and say that travel is so important in their lives, because they just don't get enough here in their spot, in their situation. And again, it helps to build an appreciation for other people. It helps you to understand that how you're living isn't the only way. That what you think is right isn't the only way. We always talk about the term being, you want to be a nationalist, or you want to be, into your country. But you also have to have an appreciation for other countries and realize that other people are people, because the saying says that people bleed just like we bleed. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we put our pants on one leg at a time, where people are same as you, and at the same time different. But how important is that? Now, there's plenty of people who've never left the state, whatever state they live in. There's plenty of people who've never left their city that they live in. I know people who don't fly, nor do they drive on the highway, nor do they cross bridges. It ain't a lot of places you can go if you're not doing any of those things. You can't go from, and I don't care what city I don't care what city you live in. Most of them have a south side. Most of them have a north side, an east side, and a west side. And in a lot of places, you're gonna have to cross a bridge to get there. And so if you're not doing all of that, you're not traveling. But just because they haven't left their house and haven't left their area doesn't mean that they're going to sit here and not have an appreciation or understanding or sympathize or empathize with other people that are in other areas. And so when people say that you have to travel, that you need to travel, I don't necessarily prescribe to that. I think that for me, I think that you just need to be a nicer person, for lack of a better word. I think that you just need to have an appreciation for life in general. You don't have to meet the neighbor to love the neighbor. You don't have to, have an experience with somebody to love them. And I think that whole travel thing, for me, it is the solution and the problem. Because the solution is, yes, you need to experience more and have an understanding and have your eyes open up and see that there's other people and other things. But I think it's also the problem, because you have to sit back here and have your eyes open up and see that there's other people and other things. You should be able to have an understanding of that from the fact of this planet is big. There's plenty of people here, and you can't just only care about yourself. And so I think that if you have to travel in order to have an appreciation, I think that's the problem right there. I think that's where it starts. That's a telltale sign. There was a politician back in the day. I know we talk about politicians all the time. His name was Dick Cheney, Vice President of the United States. And this guy was the, anti-everything, anti-LGBTQ, he definitely was anti-Black. He really wasn't for the poor. He wasn't for anything. Like, this guy really wasn't for the people. He was for the elites. He was an elite, and that's what he cared about. He loved to fight other countries in war, because he really didn't have appreciation for other people's lives and how they wanted to live. He was just that guy. And so you got somebody who's anti everything, and he was anti specifically LGBT. I don't think it was Q at the time or T at the time, LGBT or whatever it was at the time, until his daughter came out as gay. And then all of a sudden he was like, oh, yeah, you know what? And this is before gay marriage was legal. He was like, yeah, I'm for gay marriage and everything like that. Well, you weren't before. You're anti everything that's going on. You're in lockstep with all these other people that are with you. But because somebody in your family is one, your daughter specifically, now you're on board. And that's not who we should be. And that's not who, anyone should be. And that's the telltale sign of you not being, I think in a good headspace. I didn't like him as what he did as a human being, as a person. He really wasn't like a good person before that. But then when I found that portion out, that makes me even realize or confirms to me how much you're not a good person. As long as it doesn't affect you, you don't care. But when it does affect you, now you're for it. And I don't think if that is what traveling does for you, if traveling is the thing that makes you understand that other people need to have value, then I think that's what's problematic. But I do think it's important for us to not stay in our own little spot. Not that it has to be international, not that it has to be, you don't even have to leave the state. But I do think we all need to make sure that we travel within our community and have an appreciation and an understanding and touch as many different people in our community. I do think that is our thing. We shouldn't be homebodies in the sense of we have to make that extra effort. We have to stretch ourselves in order to touch people. There's a lot of people who need assistance and need help, but you never see them or never know. There's a lot of people who need assistance and need help who may not open their mouths to be able to communicate that, hey, I need assistance and I need help. And I think that that's an opportunity to touch some folk that we just, you can't see. You can't see folk from at home. You can't, be in community with folk if you just at the house. So I do think that there's a little bit of responsibility there or opportunity there to really kind of go out and meet others. Comment. Within our own communities, there are people, cultures we don't really know. Yeah. People who live in the southwestern part of Virginia are different from those who live in central Virginia. Yes, very. There are people in cities who are different because of economics and class. You just need to respect and embrace God's creation. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where we have to start. That last part we start with first. I think we just need to teach one another that you need to respect God's creation before you even meet people in other areas or people in other walks of life. Meeting them should not bring the respect. The respect should already be built in. And so whatever we need to do in order to do that is what we need to do. And so I sit back and I say, well, if you need to go around and meet different people, if you need to go around and experience different things in order to have respect and an appreciation for others in your community, other people, God's creation, as it said in the comment, then you need to do that. But more than that, I don't think you should need to do that. I think we should be teaching that to one another, or we should be reinforcing that with one another as Christians, as people of the church, that we need to reinforce. And then that, I think it makes it easier for us to do things. Some folk don't like to go to the shelter. Some folk don't like to go to different shelters and help out. They'll send their time, they'll send their money, but they won't send their time. They won't go in person. Some people don't like to go out and get their hands dirty or touch people or be with people, who are different than them. They just don't. And that is something that needs to be communicated and encouraged from the jump. That is something that just needs to be communicated and encouraged and grown from the jump. And we have to remind people that, at the end of the day, you look back to the biblical times, and you look back to the Bible, you look back to what Jesus was doing, and Jesus was all over the place. He's here talking to these folk. He's there talking to these folk. From we can go physically. He's in the mountains. He's down by the water. He's on a boat crossing over here. He's in so many different places. And maybe that is it. Maybe, when you sit back and you look at what Jesus did and all the traveling and moving around he did, maybe that is it. He didn't have a house and a home as we traditionally call it. And maybe that's kind of what's holding us down. We got our little piece of property and we're holding on so tight to it. But he moved around to be able to meet different people, touch different people, and talk to different people. And I think that may be something that we need to do. But the one thing that I keep looking at is that appreciation for others, not being so just judgmental on others, seeing how other people interact and see what other people do. I don't think that travel is that important, but at the same time, I do think travel is significant as long as it's some kind of travel. I don't think a type of travel is important, whether it be the distance isn't important, but the fact that you are getting up, moving around, and touching and meeting others, I think that's what's important. I think that it's important. And so as I looked at that, as I looked at the statistics of before I came in here, I was looking at the statistics of how much travel and how much is spent on travel and how much travel we do as a country in the United States. We do a lot. We do a lot. And it's not even as much as some of these other places, because in Europe, they're outpacing us because they have trains and everything like that, and they have just short. You can go on a plane, 30 minutes later you're in another country, 30 minutes later you're in another country, whereas we kind of really have to move. But the travel is something that we do throughout the world. And so it should be easy for us to see others. And it should be easy for us to have love for others when we see all you're doing is the same thing we're doing. You're trying to make a living for your family the same way we're trying to make a living for your family. You're loving your neighbor the same way we're loving our neighbor. You got to eat the same way we got to eat. And all the things that you do, somebody else is doing. And so there shouldn't be as much room for hate just because you don't know them, or they look a little different, or they act a little different, and all of that. So yeah, I think as Christians, we should encourage whatever type of travel people want to do. We should encourage people to just get out of their own little space. I think Christians, we're all tasked with going out into the community if we can. And whether that be our community, the broader community, the global community, whatever it may be. I think it's important that we take those steps so that we can touch other people. But again, before we go out, before we do that, I think we do need to acknowledge that everyone is our neighbor and that everyone is God's creation, that everyone needs to be treated with a certain level of respect. With that being said, there's one other part to this. There's people who travel in. This is one of the United States is one of the great travel destinations. People are always trying to come over here. They go to some of the big cities. They go to Miami. They go to a lot of cities in California. And people love to come to New York City and see all the different things that we have here. This goes both ways. As we talk and we're saying we should have appreciation for when we go out into the community, you also need to have appreciation for when people come to you and appreciate where they came from and what they've done. And appreciate them whether they are coming through on the legal process or an illegal process, if they're coming here because they're hanging out on vacation or they're coming here to escape wherever they were from, or they're coming for an opportunity or a job, whatever the reason is. This goes both ways. And so as much as I say, we need to travel and get out of our place, we also need to be accepting of those who have traveled and come into ours. And so that is a big thing, you know. In different cultures and in different times, it was, and the expectation was high of how you're supposed to treat guests. I mean, you're supposed to have a lot of respect for how guests, when they come into your home, when they come into your area. We've lost a lot of that. We think sometimes that our place is great, and you know, the people are strangers, people are threats, and people are this and they're that, and so we don't treat others the way that they should be treated when they're coming here. We all want to be safe, and we all want to be, um, treated nicely when we go abroad or when we go to somebody else's city or town. But we need to treat other people the same way when they come to ours. We need to understand that we are not the norm. We are part of the puzzle called creation. We can't categorize a whole group of people because you meet one. You know how those people are. Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. You know how those people are. That's probably one of the worst comments um, that people have. That we're just making assumptions about people. We're categorizing people. You know, you know how those folk are. You know how they act. And we all do it. We all do it from time to time. And we all we all need to have just a better understanding of folk. I always hit on that because I'm big on this. You know, immigration is a big issue here in the United States. We always talking about it. We're always talking about how many illegal immigrants are coming over here. There's a surge at the border. We have a presidential race coming up, and all the candidates, many of the candidates are talking about immigration. Some of them are foolishly talking about how I'm gonna build that wall that was supposed to be built last time. The last person who said he was going to build a wall. And it's talk you're going to continue it all and build this wall. And you want to stop people from coming on over here. And foolish things like, there's one guy, he's running for president, black guy, so you know who he is, there's only one. No, it's actually two. But one from South Carolina, he said, he's going to build a wall because he wants to stop all the opioid crisis, and he's going to build the wall and he's going to stop all the opioid crisis from coming on over here. And, that's what we got to do. When the stats and the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, has said, well, the opioid crisis, most of these opioids are coming from China. And so I don't think they're coming from the southern border. And so you can build the wall. And that's that foolishness of saying I'm gonna build this wall to stop the opioid crisis is exactly what this last comment was. You're making assumptions about people. You know who these people are. That's where these people from the South, they're bringing up all these drugs and blah 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 blah. When the reality is they're not. And so I think we need to have respect for those, and an understanding for those who are coming on over here. Again, respect for people in your community. Respect for the global community, and respect those who you don't know. And so, I think that's what it is. We have to stop making assumptions about people. And so, yes, again, because as our time winds down, I encourage everyone to get outside of your home and travel however far you want to travel, and meet as many different types of people that you can, and have an appreciation for those type of people, and an understanding for those type of people, and treat our neighbors as neighbors, and that is everybody. But I also want us to treat the people who come in here as neighbors. You have the same appreciation for them that you expect people to have for you. And so with that being said, again, traveling is good. It is good to do. All right. Well, that's it. That's all we had this week. It's a good discussion on the importance of travel, or whether or not travel is important. As always, I want to remind that on Thursdays we have Thursday Thirst, our weekly Bible study, and I encourage you to come. Same time, well, not same time, 7 o'clock. Same place, Facebook and YouTube. Also 10 o'clock on Sundays. You can come same place, Facebook and YouTube, or you can even come in person if you happen to be in the area. 10 o'clock on Sundays. And oh, and we had another comment, which I'll get to. But do you know your next door neighbor? How many people in your community do you know? That's a good one. You know, we have a bunch of people who will travel far and meet people who live in a whole other country, and you don't even know your neighbor, your next door neighbor, your across the street neighbor. You know, and I have to admit, I know all of my neighbors by face, but I don't know all of my neighbors. You know, I can tell you two of them. I have no clue. Three of them. Yeah. You know, you look at your neighbors, you usually have five, ish in your area that you can touch across the street and both sides. And I can tell you, I know some of them and don't know the others. And so I think that's important as well. We need to make sure we know who's in our neighborhood and our community. Meet who's in our neighborhood and our community. You live somewhere and then there's people and you don't even know who they are. And so, they don't benefit from you and you don't benefit from them. And I think that is a great point. You know, as much as we need to know who our neighbors are, and we need to extend that neighborly affection towards them. Yeah, we definitely do, especially when you're talking about people who are older or younger. Because to the older, there's opportunities for you to give to them, and there's some wisdom and other opportunities for them to give back to you. And when they're younger, there's definitely some opportunities, some wisdom that you can pass down to them, and some guidance and some other things that you can give back to them. Great comment. All right. Well, that's it. We are at our time. I appreciate everybody who joined us. Again, if you can always continue to type questions and comments into the comment section. And if you ever have any comments or questions that you would like to pose that are for future shows, feel free to either post them or you can give us a call. And if there's a topic or something like that you want to discuss as well. All right. Thank everybody for coming. Thank you for joining us. And as always, we'll be here next week and join us again.